I'm not sure if you remember or are familiar, but Mary Chapin Carpenter had a song back in the 90s called The Bug. And one of the lines in it is, sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug. Well, today, technology has definitely been the windshield and I am feeling like the bug. I will get into the details on the other side and I will see you there. Welcome to the latest episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter. I am also a cyclist with AIDS Lifecycle, a 7-day, 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles each year, which raises money for the life-saving work of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. As part of my fundraising for the ride, I have started a series of Knitalongs and Crochetalongs that I call the End AIDS Knitalongs and Crochetalongs that run 4 times a year. I also run an occasional fiber auction on Instagram called D-Stash for Good. If this is your first time joining me, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it with me, see what I'm doing with both the ride and knitting and crocheting. And if you are a return visitor, thank you so much for coming back. It has been a fairly busy couple of weeks. The traveling has ended for the time being, and so things are getting a little bit more into my normal rhythm. I've enjoyed some theater and music this past couple of weeks. We saw a new production of The Secret Garden here in Los Angeles before it goes to Broadway. It's a musical that I know well. It was first produced when I was a youngster, right out of college, living in New York, and was one of the first shows I saw on Broadway when I was living in New York. And then we also got to go to the Los Angeles Philharmonic last week, I suppose, and saw this amazing young violinist, Randall Goodsby, I think was his name. I think he's only 26, and he was playing the Tchaikovsky violin concerto. Absolutely amazing. He has a couple recordings out. You should definitely check him out. But such a young kid and just so talented. So that's been fun to kind of get back into a normal routine here. I have been doing a lot of bike riding. 2 months from, I think today, we will be riding out 2,000 plus of us riding out from the Cow Palace in San Francisco, which is where the ride kicks off, and we'll be headed to Santa Cruz on that first day. So we are down to the wire in terms of both training and fundraising. I have said before, the rain this year in California has put a bit of a damper on my training, just because I won't go out and ride in the rain. So I'm a little bit behind where I would have normally been at this time of the year. So I am really pushing hard to get up to where I need to be. So I've moved from about 50 miles a week when I started early February training. I'm now up to about 150 miles a week, and I will push that up north of 200 miles a week before I have to put my bike on the truck at the end of May. So it's a lot of time in the saddle each week, which is not leaving me a ton of time for knitting and crocheting, but it's just what happens this time of year. One of the good things is being out on the road on my bike. Where I ride, there is no traffic, and so I'm able to put in my earbuds and listen to music or podcasts, or in my case, audiobooks is what I tend to like to do, because I can just kind of zone out and ride for 60, 70 miles at a time listening to an audiobook. So it's allowing me to stay on top of my intention for this year of reading/listening to 10 books. And I just finished my 3rd one. It was Jennifer Lewis, the actress, performer, activist, her, I think, second autobiography, or no, actually, I think it's her first one. She has a book that has come out subsequently called The Mother of Black Hollywood. And so if you're a fan of Jennifer Lewis, you will definitely enjoy this book. I highly recommend the audiobook because she reads it and she's hysterical. And I mainly knew her from her activism work and from Blackish on television. I did not realize just how deep her career had been on the stage, on Broadway in particular. So it was a really fun book to listen to, and I've moved on now to Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, which will be my next book to tackle. So that has been going on. We did finish the mini D-Stash for Good auction that we were running this last month just to test out a few ways of doing things a little bit different. I would say it was hugely successful, both financially from a fundraising perspective and from a logistical perspective in terms of coming up with some new ways to run the auctions. So we added listing items by yarn weight, and then within those categories listing them by the brand or the dyer, which I think made it easier for folks to shop. We also numbered the listing, which I think made it easier on the back end as people were closing out transactions to refer to those numbers. We added minimum bids for the sellers, so they could, if they chose to, put in a minimum bid, which I think worked out really well. I didn't hear any complaints from the buyers. We also put in buy now prices if a seller wanted to do those. I think those were very popular from the buyer's perspective, although not too many sellers chose that option. But I thought it was a success. We raised just over $2,100 for AIDS Lifecycle, which is slightly ahead of where I had hoped it would come in, so that's fantastic. And we're going to be doing another final auction coming up, and I'll get into the details of that in a minute. But as I've said, from both the training perspective and the fundraising perspective, we are in the final stretch, and there's a big push on my end to move towards my goals on both of those counts. So in terms of some of the fundraising things, we are in the middle of the current Knitalong and Crochetalong. It is the Choose Your Own Adventure Knitalong and Crochetalong, so people are working on whatever project they want to work on. There was an entry ticket, and you're still able to buy those on my Ko-fi page. For $10, you will be entered into all of the giveaways that we'll be doing throughout the Knitalong and the Crochetalong. That will run till the end of this month, so there's still a few weeks left in it. We have finished, I think, week 3 of 7 in terms of giveaways. And so there'll be 3 or 4 more rounds of giveaways. Each Saturday I've been picking names from people who've submitted their photos on Instagram or in our Ravelry group to win prizes. Mostly it's yarn. I've built up a pretty decent stash of prize yarn to give away. So most of the prizes are coming from the yarn stash. So we got a few more weeks of that. We've already hit my fundraising goal for that Knitalong, which was $1,000. So we just crossed over that this last week, but you can still join in if you've been working on something. It doesn't have to be a new project. It can be a whip, whatever you would like. Just go to my Ko-fi page, pick up a ticket, and then start posting pictures with the hashtag. The more you post, the more entries you have into the giveaways and more chances to win. So that is ongoing. As I mentioned, we finished up the last D-Stash for Good auction. I'm currently, in terms of just fundraising, at just under $31,000. My goal for this year was $33,000. So I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to hit that. I would love to go higher. I had set a goal several years ago to try to raise $200,000 for AIDS Lifecycle. I'd given myself 10 years after that first ride to do that. I'm hoping to be able to do that with either 1 or 2 more rides after this year. We'll see how the final tally goes on the fundraising, but we may, if I get high enough above my goal this year, I may be able to try to wrap it up in 1 more year, which is great because, as I mentioned before, sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. Today I'm feeling like the bug, not only from technology, but I went out on a long ride yesterday and my knees started giving me problems. and I have an ongoing sort of back hip issue, which is not related to the cycling, I don't think. I'm going to go in actually for an MRI this afternoon, so hopefully that will give me some beginning of a picture of what is going wrong there. The good news is that issue does not seem to be affecting my ability to ride the bike. It actually feels a lot better when I'm on the bike and right after the bike, so it's something else that's going on. But that is a long way to say the sooner I can hit my goal and stop beating my body up with these long distance rides, probably the better at my age. So that is the current knit along and crochet along. Before we get into the knitting side of things, I thought I'd talk a bit about what's coming up on the knit along and the crochet along side. I sort of teased this last week, and this is kind of where technology has been the windshield today for me. So earlier this morning, I'm recording this on Thursday, I sat down very early this morning, actually on my end, it was like 7 a.m. here. I sat down with the Dyer and the designer for the upcoming Pride Crochet-Along. So Elizabeth Desamore from Desamore Designs has a pattern called the In the Forest of the Night cardigan, which will be the project that we will be working on for the Pride Crochet-Along, which runs from June 1st until July 30th. And then Brooke Adams from Fully Spun, who is the yarn dyer, has put together 2 colorways to be used to make the crochet pattern. So I filmed a Instagram live with Elizabeth and Brooke earlier this morning, and my hope was to be able to plop that video down here in the middle of this YouTube episode so that folks could watch it and learn all about the details of the crochet along from the designers and hear a little bit more about them. They're both really interesting women. Unfortunately, Instagram doesn't seem to want to let me take that video and then use it in YouTube. And I've tried a couple of different things that have not worked. So I'm going to continue to pursue that. And if I'm able to figure out a way to make it work and the video and the audio is not terrible, what I will do is put it in as a sort of bonus content, bonus episode in the next day or so that you can sit down, learn a little bit more about Elizabeth and Brooke, and go through all of the details on the crochet along. But I don't want to rely on my ability to get that done, so I'm going to go through all of the details for you here now. So, as I mentioned, it's called the In the Forest of the Night cardigan. It is an open front cardigan. I will pop a picture or several pictures up here so that you can see the finished garment. It is really very pretty, has a leaf, open leaf pattern that covers most of the body, and then within the pattern, Elizabeth has given you 3 options for sleeves. So there's a sleeveless version, one that I call sort of a cap sleeve. It's short sleeves, and then a full sleeve length. And actually, if you go through the project pages on Ravelry, you'll see that some folks have kind of taken the sleeves and done their own things with them, either adding more lace. Someone actually continued the leaf pattern all the way down the arm. So there are many options. There are 3 written into the pattern. It is a DK weight cardigan written on a G hook. I will tell you, and I'm going to show you my little sample here in a minute. I had to go down a size to get gauge. It's the first time we're doing a garment in one of my crochet alongs, so I'm really excited for that. I'm also excited because I've never crocheted a garment, so this is the first time I'm trying that. So kind of trying to level up my skills a bit on the crochet side. It is written in sizes from small, which is a 32 to 34 inch bust, all the way up to 2X, which is 48 to 50. But today on the Instagram Live, Elizabeth said that she is currently working with her tech editor to add a couple more sizes on top of that and hopefully have the pattern updated before cast on date. So if you would like to make it in one of those larger sizes, she will update the pattern. If you go ahead and buy the pattern now, when it is updated, you will get the updated version of it and able to do that. It may make picking out your yarn a little bit difficult because as of this moment, I don't have the yardages that you would need for those bigger sizes. But if you look at the pattern, she does a very good job of laying out for each size and for each sleeve length how much yarn it would take. It is in the current sizing, so from small to 2X, it is a range from 760 yards to 1600 yards of DK weight yarn. In Brooks yarn that we're using for the yarn kits, which is a 50-50 merino cotton blend, which has 230 yards to 100 grams. So that would be from 4 skeins up to 7 skeins of yarn for the current sizing. So obviously, it would be on the things added on the higher end of that as we get the larger sizes in for the pattern. In terms of the pattern itself, it is available currently on Ravelry. It is $14. It is also available on Elizabeth's website. So ideally, if you don't need to keep the pattern in Ravelry, if that's not something you do, I would go ahead and get it on her website, because then she doesn't have to pay Ravelry's fees, and she's able to keep more of the money, which is one of the main aims of my Crochettalongs, is to try to get these indie designers and dyers paid and fully compensated. So, but it is available on both her website and Ravelry now for $14. The yarn kits from Fully Spun are also live and up on her website. They are a pre-order, which is going to run only until the 22nd of April. That is to give Brooke plenty of time to dye up all of the yarn and get it shipped out by about the 20th of May, so that it's in your hands by June 1st. I should say here, and I always say, but sometimes forget to, always mean to, but don't always repeat, you do not need to buy the yarn kits to participate in the Crochet-Along or the Knit-Along. Any of my Crochet-Alongs or Knit-Alongs are totally open if you want to do stash diving. Obviously, you'll need the pattern, and in this case, you'll need an entry ticket, which I'll talk about in a second. But you can use your own yarn. You can go out and shop for other yarn. Obviously, from the fundraising perspective, it's helpful to me if you do buy the yarn kits, but I want to try to keep this as open as possible for everyone. So the yarn kits are available on fullyspun.com. I think it's the front page as you open the website, and she has put together 2 colors for the cardigan. The first is a solid color called Terracotta. I pop a picture of it up here. I don't have the yarn with me, and it kind of matches one of the colorways that Elizabeth did her samples in. So it's a inspired by the terracotta clay pots. The colorway is called Plant Parent. And so it's inspired by terracotta planters, and it's sort of a muted light rust color, very terracotta colored, but because of it's on the merino cotton blend, it takes the dye and makes it a little more muted versus what it would look like on a pure wool yarn. So that's the solid color, is Plant Parent, and then we're also doing it in a variegated, which I'm really excited about, because on Elizabeth's project page in Ravelry, most of the samples that are done are in solid colors, and so she doesn't have a lot up there in variegated. And so this is the color. You've seen this before because I've shown it, I previewed it, I think in the last couple of episodes. It is called Majestic, and it is basically every color of the rainbow, but again, because we're on this cotton wool blend, it becomes a little more muted than if you watch the Instagram live. Brooke's wearing a sweater that she did in Majestic, but in the wool, and it's a much more vibrant colors. But this is Majestic. I like that it has sort of all of the colors of the rainbow, but is not such a exact interpretation of a rainbow for Pride. But it's very, very pretty. And I actually have been working on, this is one of the secret projects I talked about last time that I couldn't tell you what it was, but I've been working on my version of the In the Forest of the Night cardigan. This is going to be made for my sister, or it is being made for my sister. So you can see how the pattern works up in the variegated. Now up against a dark, I hold up against my sweater here, it really starts to pop a little bit more. But what I love about this yarn is that the color the color changes are so small that almost every single stitch adjacent to each other is in a different color. And I'm hoping that I have some of this yarn left over because I'd really just love to see how it works knitted up. But I'm very, very happy with how it is looking. Just a bit about my experience with the pattern itself. I am, as I've said many times before, not nearly as confident a crocheter as I am a knitter. And I've never knit a garment before, so I was a little nervous. And then the initial instruction for the size I'm working on is something like chain 215, which immediately terrified me because the counting in crochet is what always gives me trouble. And just looking at the pattern, I thought it felt pretty complicated. And when you first start reading the first few lines, it seemed complicated to me. But I will say, once you get through the first repeat, and it's about a 6 or 7 row repeat, it becomes very, very clear what you're doing, and you almost don't need to refer to the pattern. I think experienced crocheters will really be able to almost do it just by looking at it, because the pattern becomes very evident, and you're never having to do anything more than kind of 3 things on any row. There's some new skills in it for me in terms of some decreases that are in there, but once you get beyond that first pattern repeat, it becomes pretty simple. And the other thing I will say, because it's DK, because it's sort of an open work pattern, it works up really, really quickly. I took my time through that first repeat, but once I did that, I got through 5 or 6 more repeats in probably a week and a half worth of time, where I'm spending a lot of time on the bike and not having nearly as much time as I normally would have to knit or crochet. It's also, I said this on the Instagram Live, it's also very forgiving in terms of errors, and there are dozens of errors in mine, but it is a very forgiving pattern in terms of taking a decrease. They were supposed to decrease 3, but you had an extra stitch and making it a decrease of 4 without being super, super visible. So I think it's a very good pattern for an intermediate crocheter for sure, and even probably an adventurous beginner. If you know some basics, the basic stitches and the concept behind increases and decreases in crochet, you're going to be fine. The other nice thing about the pattern, without giving too much away, is that, as you saw, most of the early work in it is just a big rectangle. You're just working in one big panel before you do any of the shaping to make the front part of the cardigan. So it's really nice kind of TV crochet. You can sit and work across the pattern back and forth without too much thought, and not having to think a lot about shaping until you get to the end of this big rectangle. So I've really enjoyed working on it. As I said, I'm excited that we're working on a garment. The Crochetalong, which started after the Knitalong, has gotten bigger and bigger each time. I'm really hoping that this can be the biggest one we have yet. So as I mentioned, the yarn, both Majestic and Plant Parent, are available now on Brooke's website. That's fullyspun.com. It is retailing for $31 a skein. She has it set up so based on the yardage that you would need for the various sizes, she has it grouped by, I think, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 skeins. When you buy the yarn from Brooke, at checkout, there's going to be then a $10 donation to AIDS Lifecycle put into your cart. So that way it is the participants in the Knitalong and the Crochetalong that are funding the donation and not coming out of the Dyer's pocket, which is how I prefer to run it. I always leave things up to the Dyer and the designer in terms of how they want to manage the fundraising aspect of things. Personally, my preference is that the Dyers just sort of add that into the price, or in the case here, do it on a per kit basis, where the buyers of the yarn are actually paying for the donation themselves. So that's available now. pre-order open until the 22nd of April. Please go and support yarn. Brooke, while you are there, check out check out the rest of the stuff she has on her website. She recently brought back her marled yarn. So you think of a kind of spin cycle type of yarn. And these two colors I know are still up there. Some of them have sold out. This is the Inclusive Pride Rainbow Flag colorway. So it has all the colors from the Inclusive Pride Rainbow Flag. And then this one is called Kente, which is the colors of Kente cloth. And these are 50 gram skeins. And she still has some of these, as well as some other, there's some other ones of her marled yarn up there. And I'm not sure once they sell out if she's going to be able to bring them back, because I know it's a very time-consuming and costly process that has been affected negatively by supply issues and things surrounding the pandemic. So check out Fully Spun for other yarn in addition to the stuff that we're using in the Knitalong and the Crochetalong. As I mentioned, the pattern's available on Ravelry. The only other thing you're going to need is to get an entry ticket. So if you go to my coffee page, right now there is and I'll post a picture of it here, there's a little Pride ticket, and that is the entry for both the, will be used for both the Knitalong and the Crochetalong. So we're trying a little bit of a different model this time for both the Knitalong and the Crochetalong, because we're working with existing patterns, and it's just, I think, smoother from everyone's perspective to have sort of an entry ticket as one transaction, and then you do all the patterns and the yarn separately from that. It is for both there will be an entry for a $3 entry ticket for both the Crochetalong and the Knitalong. I would say that if you are participating in both the Knitalong and the Crochetalong, I'm not going to police this. It would, if you are able, I think it would be nice if you bought tickets for both of them, but like I said, I'm not going to police that. And if you're not able to swing that, then I completely understand. The Knitalong piece of things is going to be coming in a couple of weeks. Again, there will be an entry ticket for that. And in a little bit of a different spin, the yarn kits for the Knitalong are going to be available from me directly from my coffee page. I will talk about that as we get closer and that announcement is made, but probably look for that announcement not next week, but the week after that if we can. So that's it on the Crochetalong side. I think it's going to be a really fun one. So if you have friends who are crocheters who may not have been following me already, point them in my direction, and all the details are going to be up on my Instagram page, which I should have mentioned at the front. You can find me on Instagram at GaryKnitsAndRides, and at Ravelry at GaryKnitsAndRides. So all the details will be in both of those places for the Knitalong and the Crochetalong. I also mentioned that there is another D-Stash for Good. The final one for this AIDS Lifecycle season is going to be coming up. I will be opening for submissions on the 13th of April to set up for an auction that will then begin on the 26th of April and run through the 10th of May. So that will give 2 full weeks of the actual auction itself. The last week of it happens to coincide with Maryland Sheep and Wool, where I will not be here. I will be at Maryland Sheep and Wool. So that'll be going on while that's going on, and then when I come home, I'll be able to close out the auction. I'm going to try to keep it to 250 items. The last one we did, this little mini one, was about 100, which felt very, very comfortable for everyone. The one prior to that, if you remember, was 400 and something items, which felt a little uncomfortable from my end in terms of processing everything. So I'm hoping that 250 is kind of a happy medium. Lots of choice for seller or for buyers, but not too much for them to winnow through, and not too much for me to deal with on the back end. And I think it's not the difference in work on my end from 100 to 250 is probably not that much, but it's probably more than double the amount of fundraising that I'll be able to do. So that will watch on both my account at GaryKnitsAndRides and also the D-Stash for Good account, which is D-Stash for Good, for the announcement when I'm opening up the submissions. I'll try to keep the submissions open for almost a week. It kind of just depends on how fast people get things uploaded. I may put a per day limit in terms of how many things one person can upload in a single day. I'll just have to see on the form management side of things if that's even something I can do. I may be able to limit the total number that get submitted in a day, but I don't know if I can do that per person. Anyway, check out D-Stash for Good for all the details when that comes around. And with that, I think we are down to talking about knitting and crocheting, or whips and FOs. I have no FOs. It is probably going to be a while before I have an FO. With all of the writing I'm doing, I'm just not able to knit on things as much as I would like to. On my cardigan, because I'm making it for my sister, and I've shown her the fabric, which she is in love with, but she said based on the pattern page, she might want it to be a little bit longer than how it's showing on Elizabeth's project pages. So since I will see her at Maryland Sheep and Wool, I think I'm going to hold off on the next step here, which is then to start some of the body shaping and take it with me, hold it up and see where it hits her, and maybe do one more pattern repeat before we go to start working on the front shaping pieces. So I think I'm going to probably hold off on working on that for the next few weeks, and which leaves me with the Windy Day blanket that I am working on, also on deadline. It's a graduation gift for a friend of ours, and I don't know what it is, but with the cardigan on the hook and the blanket on the needles, and both of those things sort of being in a bit of a time crunch, and I really just need to be working on those things. All I want to do is cast on something else. I keep finding these like shawls I want to work on, and hats I want to make. So I may have to sort of address that sort of tingling to do that with some sort of fast project. So maybe it's another knit the rainbow hat. I have some more of that Felice worsted that I used to make the one that's right. Well, you can't see it. That's behind the calendar there. That I made the first one. I may just sort of cast on. Maybe I'll do a crochet hat because that'll be even faster. So it'll kind of not weigh me down in terms of the blanket. But anyway, on to the Windy Day blanket. I will grab it and show it to you. So this is the Windy Day blanket. I'll show a picture of the completed thing here. As I said, I'm working on this as a graduation present for a friend of ours who is graduating from high school and headed to college this fall. So I would like to get this done before she actually graduates and get it in the mail to her. Here is what I have done. We're using 4 colors of Malabrigo Rios. It is done modularly in these squares that are then joined as you go to 3 across to make the blanket. So we have this cream color, this blue. I'm not going to know the names, but everything is listed below in the show notes. This sort of wine color, and then the final color is this slate gray. So I am 4 blocks in. Actually, I'm partially through the 5th block. It just hasn't been joined. The joining part hasn't happened yet. And I've let this sit for a couple weeks while I've been scrambling to get the big panel done on the cardigan for the Crochetalong. So now this will be my primary focus, for the next month or so until it gets done. It's straight garter stitch. It's just increases, and when you join things, it's a little tricky, but it otherwise is real potato chip knitting. You just kind of set and go. So perfect for sitting and watching TV. I had never used Malabrigo Rios before. This will not be the last time I use it. It is very, very soft, beautiful, beautiful yarn to work with, and I'm really enjoying the project. So I love that. I love that it's joined as you go, so you don't have any seaming. The downside to it is it's not portable. So I'm to the point now where I won't take this anywhere out of the house just because it's too cumbersome and stuff like that. So when we go to like the symphony, where I always take knitting with me to knit on before things get started, and then an intermission, that's not going to work. And I think we have at least one more concert between now and when hopefully I'll have this finished, which is just another reason why I could probably cast on something new. Although I do have these socks that I guess I could show as a whip. If you haven't seen them before, I haven't made much progress, but I'm doing the Drunk Knitters 2 socks in 1 method, and I guess this is something that I could be working on in the meantime. But I still just want to cast something new on. It's a problem. It's a problem. Anyway, that is it really in terms of whips and FOs. Hopefully next time I'll have made some more progress on the blanket, and maybe have started something fun and quick to work on to show you guys. But that's it for now. In terms of acquisitions, it's been very slow. I was hoping to have a big one to show you, but I got word from the Dyer that things have been delayed slightly because of an illness in the family. And so that won't be here, but will be here for the next one. It's been one that has been a pre-order for quite a while, and something that I've been very excited to get my hands on. So I will share that with you when it comes. The only thing I have is Tyler from Thought to Thread. There's that. Was switching his sock base, and so he had a lot of, or I don't know if he had a lot, but he had inventory of yarn on his old sock base, which is I think the composition is the same, it's just a different manufacturer, but it's 55% merino, 25% nylon, 20% kid mohair. And I had used this in my attempt at the Stephen West Mystery Knitalong this last year, the Twists and Turns, which I started, got halfway through clue 1, and then ripped it out. And I'd used one of his, I think it was this color, Novel Pages. And really, really enjoyed the base, but he was getting ready to switch over to a different sock base, and was doing a sale on his old base. And so I just always thought it was good to have a grouping of neutrals in the stash, and I don't have much black and sort of lighter grays and creams, so I just grabbed some of those on sale, and that'll go into into the stash. But that's really the only acquisition that I have over the last couple weeks. Like I said, I hope the big one is coming, that I can share that with you next time. And so I thought with that I could jump into some Craftivism. Here is where I was going to insert the video about the the Knitalong, or the Crochetalong with Elizabeth and Brooke. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to go watch either the chat we had on Instagram Live, which I saved over there, or if I can figure it out, I will get it uploaded here as a separate video here on YouTube. But in terms of Craftivism, there were a couple of things that I wanted to highlight this week. You have probably seen on Instagram that Magpie Fibers had convinced Adela at Lola Bean Yarn Company to make her cause of this quarter Lola Bean Yarn Company. They have sort of outgrown their space, and have decided that if they renovate the space that they're using right now, they could accommodate more people, that they might be able to bring on some extra people to help out and to sort of ramp up their business, scale up their business to the next level and do even more. Lola Bean is obviously a hugely successful brand and company, and she does so much for the community, both visibly and then behind the scenes, that I thought that this was just a great idea that the folks at Magpie had to sort of push her to sort of focus on her own business for a quarter in terms of the fundraising part of what she does. She has raised money for quarter by quarter for a bunch of different things, from Knit the Rainbow to Black Girls Code to veterans mental health. Those are all the things that she does publicly. There are tons of things that she does behind the scenes which go unheralded and unnoticed, except by the people that she helps. She was very helpful to me when I first had the idea for the Knitalongs, in terms of just promoting it on a story and getting a bunch of people to see what I was doing. And she's also been very generous in terms of providing some giveaway prizes and things like that along the way. So I think it's tremendous. They're doing a GoFundMe now. They were trying to raise $60,000. As of today, I think they're already up to $55,000 in like 3 or 4 days. So that's an amazing show of support from the community. But there's more coming during the quarter. I think there's going to be collaborations and merch and special yarn colors and things like that. So if you aren't following Lola Bean already, or Magpie, go check out what they're doing to help to take this indie dyer's business to the next level. Also, someone who has been incredibly supportive to me and to the community in general is Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn. The foundation of her brand is suicide awareness and suicide prevention. She lost her daughter Kayla to suicide, and that inspired her to start this yarn company where she donates huge amounts of money or proceeds from her business to suicide awareness and suicide prevention. She has also been hugely supportive of my Knitalongs. She was the dyer and the designer for a sock Knitalong that we did last Pride, the Inclusive Pride Rainbow Socks, which you may have seen me posting my picture on Instagram in. And then she also did the yarn for this last winter's Knitalong, the sock Knitalong that we did with Snowy Thistle Knits. So she's been very supportive of my causes, and she could use some help right now as well. Her dog, Wilson, who's a Frenchie mixed with something else, suddenly, he's only 5 years old, but suddenly got sick. They took him in, and he has a heart condition, and they had to drain some fluid out of his chest, and now he is beginning the process with a cardiologist, a dog cardiologist, to treat this condition. The medical bills, or the vet bills, have been incredibly expensive, way more than what Laura and her husband had sort of budgeted. And so she is running a sale on her website right now for 30% off everything, no exclusions. She's also running a raffle. So by the time you see this on Friday, it's going to go through Saturday, the raffle and the sale. So just head over to Always Be Kind Yarn. The raffle tickets are $5 a piece. I know she's raffling off gift cards or hand knit items if you are not a knitter and don't need yarn. I think she's going to pick three winners. The raffle tickets are only $5. So if you can, she has absolutely stunning yarn, beautiful self-striping yarn that she does. So go treat yourself to some yarn. Try to help her raise some additional money to help cover Wilson's vet bills, or buy a raffle ticket to do the same. So she's a fantastic human being, and want to give her all the support that we can in what's a difficult time right now. The other thing that I wanted to mention before I have one of my own is Marinated Yarns. So Marinated Yarns is currently, for the month of April, running a fundraiser for Moms Demand Action, which is one of the biggest groups fighting for gun violence prevention here in the States. Unfortunately, it is something that is in the news almost every single week with some mass shooting somewhere or another. And it is something that I feel passionately about, that we need to be doing much more than we are to help fight against the proliferation of firearms in the US, where there are more firearms than there are people. So Marinated Yarn is doing a fundraiser for Moms Demand Action. 100% of the proceeds from this fundraiser are going to be donated to the organization. There is yarn, stitch markers, and I think 6 pattern codes that you get in the package. I think you can also buy maybe the stitch marker separately if you don't want yarn, or the yarn separately if you don't want the stitch marker. But I think there's a package that's around $67, I think, that you get some yarn on several different bases to choose from. Stitch marker, which is the orange ribbon, which is the Moms Demand Action sign, and then I think it's 6 Ravelry codes for different patterns. So go check it out on marinatedyarns.com to do that and to help out that very important cause. As I said, I had one for myself. I'm not going to give you full details because we're a couple of days ahead of things, but what I will say is Monday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time and 3 p.m. Pacific Time, I'm going to be going live with Jake Kenyon from Ken Yarn, and we're going to be having a conversation about a bunch of different things. And he's got a lot of stuff going on in his business right now. As you may have seen, he has decided to get out of the dyeing side of his business, but he has a couple things still up his sleeve, including a new collection. And then we're going to make a big announcement regarding something fun that's going on for the both of us. So tune in on Monday the 10th, right? Is that right? The 10th? Yes, Monday the 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific for a live with Jake and myself. I will once again try to figure out a way to save that live and then put it over here on YouTube as sort of a standalone piece of content. But once again, I may be the bug, and Instagram may be the technology windshield that is keeping me from doing what I want. So I hope you will join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about this project, and I think a lot of you will be too. So that is it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed the content. If you have, I would love it if you would subscribe, like this episode, leave a comment for me, maybe what colors you are planning to use for your crochet along. And I hope you can join me in a couple weeks for another episode. Until then, be safe. Thank you.